And it's time to disappoint a lot of you. The only reason I'm bringing this up is because I keep seeing it time after time after time. People keep saying, oh, what do you think about this class? Why didn't you put this paladin class or this bard subclass or whatever? Why didn't these make it onto your predicted list of what you think will be in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything? Whether it be the written list that I tweeted and or posted as a community post on YouTube, or whether you watched the video and figured that out. Well, as I said in the video, but I feel like it warrants its own video due to just the amount of comments, there's an official conversation from Jeremy Crawford where he says if it's been more than a year and it hasn't shown up in a published book, it's done. It's gone. It's not being worked on anymore. So I'm sorry to disappoint, but let's take a look. So if we go over to Twitter, Jeremy Crawford's Twitter right here, someone said, is there an official announcement for which UA content gets abandoned? How do I find the status for feats for skilled? Feats for skills, rather. And Jeremy says on July 27th of 2018, so just a little over 2 years ago, if a year or more has passed since something appeared in Unearthed Arcana and that thing hasn't appeared in a D&D book, that thing is unlikely to become official. If it beats the odds and moves forward, you'll likely see it in UA again in a revised form. And this is something that I have said before, but I feel like people just either overlook it, whether they just don't want to pay attention to it or what. I said the same thing when all the Unearthed Arcana was coming out for Xanathar's Guide. If it was in a Xanathar's Guide, like the early UA, and then it got a revised version of it, pretty much all of the revised version, there are a few exceptions, made it into a final published book. And that, I'm pretty sure, actually, no, I'm going to say I'm 100% sure is what happened and what is happening with Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. All the stuff that we knew, the 5 reprints we know, we already know a handful of things are confirmed from different sources. Go back and check that video, I talk about it. And anything that received an update, whether it was, basically these new rounds of Unearthed Arcana, if they received an update, then they more than likely going to end up in the book. And then because of just the time frame, we can kind of deduce what we think is going to be in that book. And that's why my list came from where it is. So I'm going to jump over now to the Unearthed Arcana section of Wizards of the Coast's website, which you don't know, you can scroll all the way back to 2015. Or sorry, I only went back to 2016, but you can go back to 2015. So you can keep going and see all of these old modules, all these old releases, and obviously you can play them yourself and enjoy that. That's why I don't think, I think it was that old Black Magic introduces, I believe it's that one that introduces the Abyssal Tiefling. I don't believe the Abyssal Tiefling will ever get published because it was released back in like 2015 and it hasn't seen an update and is probably just left by the wayside. We got a ton of Tieflings in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, so we're probably not going to get any more. So if we keep going, right, here was feats. This, I believe, was the feats for skills on Unearthed Arcana. I'm going to click on them and open them separately because unfortunately, if you click on one of these links and then go back, it cuts you back to the top of the list and you have to search through them again. So these were, yeah, feats for skills, Warhammer Mastery. Or no, these weren't. These were the things like Flail Mastery, Blade Mastery. Those things aren't going to come back. We'll likely see the spiritual successor to those in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Then we had the Faithful, right? So if we go and look at this, I think was the Seeker Patron Warlock, the Theurgy Wizard. Those aren't going to make it. I think some of them even got revised versions, but they didn't make it in Xanathar's, right? We know the revised Ranger is dead. These were the Barbarians that I think ended up in Xanathar's. I'm going to keep scrolling past these because these have all been republished. Ancestral Guardian, Storm Herald, and Zealot. All 3 of those made it into Xanathar. So you get my point. So let's scroll up to some more modern things that have not made it. Right, we know the Mystic is dead. All right, now we're into 2017, and you can see here's the Favored Soul, Phoenix Sorcery, Sea Sorcery, right? We know Favored Soul became eventually Divine Soul, and that was published in Xanathar's. So that means, folks, unfortunately, Stone Sorcery, Sea Sorcery, and Phoenix Sorcery are dead. They're not coming back. Just like the Raven Queen Warlock, right? All of these are left behind. You can still play them if you want and update them and make them what you think they should be, but they're not going to get picked up for a publication. Same thing again. Here's the Mystic. Here was the revised stuff for Xanathars. More revised options. More revised options. You can see the revision process happening all throughout 2017 leading up to Xanathar's release. Then we had sub-races. All these Elf and the Gith and all those ended up in Morden Canaans. So let's see. This was 3 subclasses. This was January of 2018. This was Spores Druid, Brute Fighter, Invention Wizard, right? Okay, Spores Druid made it into Ravnica, which means kind of by proxy that the Brute Fighter and the Invention Wizard, they're gone. They would have been published in 2019. We're in 2020 now. Okay, so those are out. Order Domain, published in Ravnica. Keep going up here. Dragon Marks, published in Eberron. Eberron stuff here. Dragon Marks, Magic Items of Eberron, all those things make sense. The only one that kind of shocked me that has not been published officially is I don't think that of Ships and Sea. I don't think that one ever got published. I think there's some stuff in Ghost of Saltmarsh. I don't know if it made its full publication anywhere. Here's the first issuance of Sidekicks. Now, Sidekicks are a little bit different because Sidekicks ended up being published in the Essentials kit, so it's kind of just a continuation. We had the Artificer Returns here back in May of 2019. All right, now we're starting to get into the part where we can be published in a book, and that's why I mentioned what I said. So we have Barbarian and Monk, August of last year. You see that we had kind of a lapse. We had no Unearthed Arcana from the 14th of May of 2019 until the 15th of August 2019. And I don't know this for a fact, but I'm guessing somewhere in that time frame is where they said we need to figure out what we're doing for the next book. So they start working on stuff to release for playtest, and that's where we are with Tasha's. So Barbarian and Monk gave us the Wild Soul Barbarian and the Astral Self Monk. That is with it. I mean, it pretty much a year just passed, but it seems like it's already in development cycle. That's why the things I picked are what I picked, right? So then it was the Aberrant Mind, which has become the Psionic Soul or Psionic Mind, whatever it officially landed on, and the Lurker in the Deep Warlock. Oops, let's open this back up here and go back. Then we got Bard and Paladin. So now here, Bard and Paladin, this one was a little bit different because this was the Eloquence and Heroism, Eloquence Bard and Heroism Paladin, which has since become the Glory Paladin, and both of these were published in Mythic Odysseys of Theros. So this is obviously out. These ones are already done, and they're going to be reprinted in Tasha's, so we can skip that. Okay, Cleric, Druid, Wizard. This gave us Twilight, Wildfire, and Onomancy. We already know that Onomancy has been cut in the revision process, so I'm going to say that leaves in Twilight and Wildfire. Onomancy is out. Fighter, Ranger, Rogue was the Rune Knight, the Swarm Keeper, and the Revived. We know the Revived got an update as being the Phantom, so we know that'll pretty much be in there. The Swarm Keeper and the Rune Knight. So, okay, we can keep moving on from that. We had the class feature variants. We know that's getting handled here. Then we got Rogue, Fighter, Rogue, Wizard, and this was, I think, the Psionics version. So this was the Psychic Warrior Fighter, the Soul Knife Rogue, and the Psionics Wizard. We also know from additional revisions that Psionics Wizard has been cut. Psychic Warrior has been changed to Psi Knight, and Soul Knife has been revised, but is still called Soul Knife. And then we fall into the subclasses part 1, 2, and 3, other ones that I believe we will be getting in this, which is subclasses part 1 was Path, the Beast Barbarian, Mercy Monk, Watcher's Paladin, Genie Warlock. Then we got subclasses 2, Creation Bard, Unity Cleric, Clockwork Soul Sorcerer. We already know that Genie was confirmed, as was Creation Bard, so that kind of fits there. Then in the next one here, subclasses part 3, I think this had the Druid in it, right? This is the Armor Artificer, confirmed. Circle of Stars Druid, also confirmed. Fey Wanderer Ranger, I think might also be confirmed. I don't have my notes in front of me. Then we got the Magic Tattoos, also confirmed. Psionics were revisited. This is the one that tells us that the Mystic is dead, the Onomancy Wizard, and the Psionics Wizard is dead. So this is the revisions of the psionic options that we got, which I believe this is the Psi Knight. Yeah, the Psi Knight and the Soul Knife and the new Psionic Soul Sorcerer. We also know, by the way, for those of you who didn't like the Psionic Talent die, Jeremy Crawford confirmed in, I think, a Dragon Plus article, or maybe it was a D&D Beyond interview, that there's a new generation of that. That didn't go over well, so that the next, whatever we're getting in Tasha's is going to be a new iteration, so it won't be that. Then we got Subclasses Revisited, which was the Revived Rogue, which replaced the Phantom Rogue with the Revived Rogues replaced with the Phantom, Noble Genie replaced with the Genie, and the Archivist subclass, which I believe was an Artificer subclass, has been updated to become the Order of Scribes Wizard, which is the only wizard that I anticipate we're going to get in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. And then we had Unearthed Arcana feats, and then we're into Subclasses Part 4, which was just earlier this month, which, like I said, means there's absolutely no chance that it will be appearing in this book because the time frame is too tight. And we know through the D&D Diversity article that there's going to be more stuff coming with Vistani and Barovia potentially into next year, possibly. And that if it is a spooky themed book, Undead Patron, Warlock, and Spirits Bard would be a great fit for that book. So that's kind of, I just wanted to touch on this because I feel like everybody's super hopeful for things that just don't fit the philosophy of what Wizards of the Coast is doing with this. It's just not how it works, folks. It's been too long, so it's gonna fall off, and then it fell off, the Unearthed Arcana list, and now we're just gonna be dealing with what comes out in the new book. So I'm sorry if I let anybody down by letting them know the truth of what is likely to happen. But it's just some people miss out on these things. If you don't read the articles, you don't see the tweets, you don't listen to the certain interviews, you miss out on that kind of stuff. So again, the philosophy is we want to play test stuff as much as we can. We want to get the players' feedback on all the stuff. That's why we keep putting out why they keep putting out Unearthed Arcana. And, if it does well, that's why those surveys are so important. If there's a ton of positive feedback, then that stuff will likely get a new iteration of it or possibly make it into a book. And then if it doesn't do well, then the player feedback is taken into account. If it's overwhelmingly thought of as negative, like some things that we've seen before, like how the Mystic was just so broken, it needed so much playtesting that it got itself broken into non-existence. I guess apparently back in the day, feats weren't that popular. D&D Beyond information, as well as the survey, said that feats weren't that important. People didn't like them that much. Now, I think more people have had time with the game, and feats are becoming more of an importance into people's lives. So we now have more, feats are doing well, and there will be new feats in this book. Another reason that I think there will only be one wizard subclass in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything is because of the same design philosophy we had with Xanathar's Guide to Everything, which was this was again something confirmed by Jeremy Crawford in an interview, was that there's a bunch of new spells in Xanathar's. There's presumably going to be we know there's going to be new spells, hopefully a bunch of them, in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. That being said, the wizard will likely have the largest number of those new spells. So the design philosophy, at least that conversation, was if you're a wizard, you're more concerned about having access to more spells and less necessarily concerned about new options for subclasses. So you get one new subclass, but you're going to have access to a whole bunch more spells. And that makes sense. Tasha herself is a wizard, So this makes sense, right? She'd be making spells. We already know there's a couple new Tasha named spells. I'm also hopeful that we'll get a reprint of the Sword Coast Adventures Guide cantrips, because they're another thing that is left by the wayside in the Sword Coast Adventures Guide, yet to be redone or reprinted anywhere. So if you are someone who lives in the Adventure League world, that sucks, because if you want those cantrips, you have to take what your +1 is a book for literally 4 cantrips and nothing else. But anyway, that's it. Like I said, I wanted to apologize for possibly being the bearer of bad news, but I don't want people to get their hopes up for something from 2016 that's never going to show up. So anyway, thank you to my patrons over on Patreon for continuing to support me and the channel. Thank you to all of you for subscribing. 50,000 is closer every day. I will see you all next time.